I am going to beat you into the living death.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Walkout Network. It's your man, Ant Walker, here with the latest edition of the Living Death Show. I'm very excited to be with two of my good friends this week, and we've got a little bit of mixed martial arts to talk about, as we tend to do week to week. So let's go ahead and introduce these two gentlemen. First up is the jack of all trades who has mastered them all, the senior editor of SureDog.com, and the big homie, Ben Duffy. Ben, how you doing today?
I'm doing really well. Good to be here with you guys. Plenty to talk about even after a UFC-free weekend.
Absolutely. And of course, the man who anchors the panel every week with the stats, the facts, the figures, and the numbers. He is the associate editor of SureDog.com, also my good friend, Mr. Jay Petrie. Jay, what's going on, bro?
Boys. The stat of the week. The stat of the week this week. There can only be one stat of the week. One. Because that is the number of losses on Kayla Harrison's professional record.
Wow. And also the number of major events that took place over this Thanksgiving weekend. So before we get into that, remember to like, subscribe, share, tell a friend to tell a friend, tell that friend to tell 10 more friends. Let's jump right into it, gentlemen. PFL pay-per-view, the only major offering in the mixed martial arts world over the Thanksgiving break. Give us your ratings for it. We'll break it up into two parts. So first up, overall pay-per-view experience. What was it like for you, gentlemen? I did not watch the pay-per-view as it was going on, but I know you two, as employees of a major mixed martial arts website, were on duty. So what was that experience like for you watching it on pay-per-view?
I covered it for SureDog on the play-by-play, so I was there from start to finish, from the amateur fight. Yes, that's right. PFL decided we're going to put on an amateur fight. To what end, I don't know, because this guy, Biagio Ali Walsh, obviously the grandson of that Ali guy you probably heard of on the internet sometime. He boxed, I guess. I don't know. I don't really. Anyway, he's an amateur, and he's going to be an amateur for a while. So it's not like he's going to be a PFL challenger ready type fighter for a good period. So yeah, that was interesting. Anytime you have 6 championship fights going on back to back, it's going to probably be a slog unless you're KSW 39 Coliseum, which had like 6 title fights and a champion versus champion fight, but it's KSW. So what happened, Ben Duffy? What kind of truck did they roll up very frequently because of the nonsense at that fight?
The vegetable truck.
They sure did, because the KSW is amazing. It was just fine. Like there were moments that it was smooth. The pacing was better than I expected. There were times that I thought, okay, we're going to now have 15 minutes of blah blah blah, and we'd have like 8 minutes of that. So it's half of what I expected. So if I'm coming into it going, oh boy, we're going to be going until 1 a.m, we only go until 12:20, which is a 4-hour and 20-minute pay-per-view. That's a lot. The action was fine. There were some good fights. There was some enjoyable action. There were some memorable stakes behind it. So I can get behind that. But it's still, man, I will never be able to get past the feeling of UFC 33, of so many championship fights, and they're all exhausting, and they're back-to-back, and you don't know what to do when the pay-per-view cuts. All of that nonsense from way, way long time ago. Of too many title fights, and that's what this felt like. So there's a hard cap for you, for me at least, because you're going to be in for it for at least 2 50-minute fights, or 2 25-minute fights, possibly 3 at least. So it was good relative to expectations, but I don't think this is a thing that is sustainable. I don't know if you agree or disagree.
I found myself wondering if they should split it between 2 nights and just make it a weekend thing, like Friday and Saturday.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest here. The pay-per-view, it was not a financial windfall for PFL. Like that's fine. So it's not like they're like killing a golden goose by splitting this thing into 2 nights. Make one free and charge for one. I don't know. Make them each $25. Make it $50 for a weekend pass. Like I don't know. But cutting this, frankly, pretty good product into more digestible chunks would have helped him. Because, yeah, it was a marathon, and Fridays are my fucking day off.
Yeah.
I mean, I may be the only American that paid for this shit with my own money and isn't going to expense it. Like,
Oh, that hurts.
I mean, it wasn't just a Friday off for you, Ben. I mean, this was a Friday off for literally the entire country. Like, this is a major day that most people take time to spend with their friends, unless you work in retail or you work. I used to work in the restaurant industries. I would be faithfully at the bar doing my job on a Black Friday. But unless you work in a field like that, you are typically spending time with family, whether that time be spent out shopping or just eating leftovers and watching football around the house or doing whatever. Like, it's more of a time that tends to bring families together, not necessarily bring cage fighting fans together. So I think there's got to be a hard cap on what sort of success they can see on that end. As far as the pay-per-view experience, I can't speak to that because I watched it after the fact. But as far as the way the fight card turned out, it defied my expectations for sure. It was a decent amount of action. We got some finishes, we got some intrigue, we've got some question marks around what happened. It was more to talk about when it was over than I anticipated.
Yeah,
and especially when you run a weekly podcast dedicated to talking about mixed martial arts, it tends to be a good thing. So so I'm not mad at it at all. But of course, the biggest story coming out of the PFL was Larissa Pacheco beating Kayla Harrison, one of the many upsets that we've been seeing. I mean, shout out to Jay the Prophet Petrie for calling this one. I'll let you speak on it first, Jay, since you're the one who made the bold prediction via this show. What did you make of her performance there?
Well, if I may, can I circle back to one thing that did bother me on the broadcast?
Of course.
Wiz Khalifa. I mean, I get it. He's an investor. He's involved. Last year, he made the theme song a million something, whatever, the million song for PFL to represent the season. So he comes out and
a million problems that a bitch ain't one.
And he comes out and does a track from like 2014. We Dem Boys is the song he decides to choose on an event headlined by women. Okay, what are we doing? I don't understand. That doesn't make any sense to me in the world. And then he does the Million Ways as he walks out. Oh, he's lip syncing the whole time. Oh, what a weird 15-minute introduction to the event that I don't feel was necessary at all. And yes, I'm not the target demographic in terms of Wiz Khalifa. I'm not a crazy, fan, but it felt like let's get on with the show. And I saw that was a very popular and frequent comment on social media. Come on. Let's go. We got 7 fights to go here.
I mean, he could at least done black and yellow because it would have matched the colors that they were wearing for this show.
Or he could have made a new song because he's paying or getting paid a lot of money. I don't know which.
Or he could have just not done that.
Yeah.
And just sat in the audience and enjoyed watching his investment. Or maybe not lip sync. So as far as the lip syncing quality, was it better or worse than the Thanksgiving Day parade?
I didn't watch the parade. All I know is that there were moments that he was talking to the crowd and there was just him doing verses. I'm like, well, that's not what he's saying.
Well, I'll tell you this. I had to watch the Thanksgiving Day parade because, my kids wanted to see the floats with the cartoons.
Oh, sure.
My wife and my mother-in-law. They like watching the parade. I think parades are the most boring thing in the world. And it sucked. It sucked and it was terrible. I had to drink a beer to get through it.
One beer?
Yeah, just one. I don't want to go overboard, but just one. I drink like once or twice a month now. So that one beer that represents a lot of my alcohol consumption.
I remember my first beer.
Yeah. so like the lip syncing on that was so bad. Like Dionne Warwick was one of the quote unquote performers. I get it. Like she's elderly. She's not going to go out there and dance and really perform and sing her heart out. But I mean, she wasn't even trying. Like she's sitting there holding the mic and she's just looking at the crowd and it's like the song is playing and she'll mouth a word or two here and there. She's just looking.
Oh, what a shame.
Yeah, but I just
Yeah,
wanted to share that. Just
I
bad lip
appreciate
syncing, just running through the whole Thanksgiving theme here that we had over the weekend.
I know there was one period that he said, "What's up, New York?" because they're in New York City, and he says that you can see it, and it's still playing a million ways to blah blah blah, a million ways. It's playing the track and not the whatever. And I'm like, well, that sounds oddly similar to the song they played 45 times already tonight as the interlude to coming back in. Interesting how the studio, but anyway, let's get back to the actual action because people punch each other. Yeah, I'm wearing my gold shirt, not just because there were 6 champions, but because I feel like a champion as well for predicting this. Now, granted, I did say that Larissa Pacheco was going to knock her block off. I said that she was going to secure the knockout. I believe I suggested inside the distance because I didn't believe there was a way that Pacheco would be able to win on the scorecards. I thought, okay, she'll win 1 and 2, maybe hurt Kayla enough to get whatever, but probably not. And then 3, 4, 5, Kayla could pick up because I've seen Kayla perform in 5-round fights, and Pacheco did not. All of the things that we looking at Pacheco coming into this fight, her improvements, her style, her physical attributes were accurate about how she approached this fight. Like, she is a true women's lightweight fighter. And the only other one on the roster, other than maybe Jenna Fabian, which I still don't understand the whole situation because she missed weight and that's a whole mess, is Kayla Harrison as an actual lightweight. She took this the serious of utmost seriousness. When Kayla Harrison struggled to be able to get takedowns, we talked about how Kayla's not really a double person. She's not going to try and snatch a single. She's not as good at it. She's a judoka. She's going to head and arm. She's going to hip toss you. She's going to insert judo throw in Japanese. I can't remember because I haven't forgotten. I haven't committed those all to memory yet. And then she started getting tired and started shooting for doubles. And Kayla couldn't get Pacheco down. And that was what I had prognosticated coming into this, is that she's not going to be able to get Larissa Pacheco down as easily as she did. And then the first round happens, and she puts her on her ass and is on top for like 4 minutes. I'm like, oh, man, this is the fight. And then it wasn't anymore. I don't know if it was the kind of situation where Kayla had like an Andrew Sanchez kind of a performance where the active aggression and offense that she put out tired her more out than her opponent, because Andrew Sanchez, former UFC middleweight, of course, is known notoriously for gassing himself by forcing clinches, by forcing wrestling, by forcing things. So by the 3rd round, he is more tired from imposing his will than his opponent is defending against it. And to me, that played out like the way it did. Like this was a performance where if they fought again in 3 months, it'll be like that. Like, there's nothing that I can see that Harrison could shore up other than maybe training more wrestling, but I don't think that's her game. She's not a striker. We saw there were very few moments on the feet where it was even close to, okay, Harrison's a good. Like, it was if they're on the feet and Pacheco's in range, and she's not, blocking a head kick, because Kayla threw a couple head kicks. That was kind of impressive. Is that Pacheco is going to hurt her, and she did. There were multiple times where Kayla would spin around and turn around on the cage and have to circle out the other side. That power was that power that Kayla Harrison in her interviews said would not bother her. That the questions are, what happens when I get hit? Nothing, because I train with savages, blah, blah, blah. That's all the things she said, stuff like that in her interviews. Nah. Larissa Pacheco her strikes, as we suggested, hits different. It's that what I said was the rush hour, which one of y'all kicked me kind of, that type of surprising power. And that did the trick. And I want to know, in addition to what you guys thought of performance, what the hell is the PFL going to do now? Like, because I see from a perspective of future prospects, they have the rematch, and then what? Like, okay, fine. Maybe they'll make a best of 5 if Pacheco wins the 4th fight. That's all you have. The crossover appeal's gone. Any appeal for her to go to fight somewhere else is pretty much gone. Like, we talked so many times, and Duffy, you were really good at breaking down why Alexander Volkanovski is not an all-time great in consideration with a lot of people because of that loss at welterweight at the beginning of his career, when otherwise he has an incredible resume. Well, this loss on Kayla Harrison's record is even more damning than that because of her division as it stands. So all of that to say, guys, what are we doing here? What do you think about all of it? I want to know.
It's bittersweet because Larissa Pacheco, that was her end game. Friday night was her end game. She has spent 3 years building herself into somebody that could come back and beat Kayla Harrison. The lightweights, quote unquote, that Harrison has been beating up for 3 years plus, almost without exception, were either natural lightweights that just aren't very good fighters, or
Marina Moraes,
bantamweights, or in the case of Marina Moraes, literal flyweights who just blew themselves up to 155 pounds with not quality mass. I mean, Sarah Kaufman openly joked about it. She's like, I'm going to be bantamweight Sarah Kaufman with 20 pounds more jiggle. Like, and she was, and she didn't make it to fight her. Pacheco she put all that away. When she lost last time, she clearly made a decision, said, I'm going to beat this bitch, and completely transformed herself. But in doing so, she pulled the temple down on her own head. She destroyed the division that basically she had built herself into being able to conquer. She came into this knowing that they weren't going to do another lightweight season next year, that it was going to be Kayla in quote unquote the super fights or showcase fights or whatever it is. I mean, it is bittersweet because she came into the greatest triumph of her career and kind of has nowhere to go now. She is somebody that the only reason she didn't fight in last year's final is that she missed weight in the playoffs. She has turned herself into someone that needs to cut weight to get to 155 pounds. She was bigger than Kayla Harrison. She was visibly 1.5 inches taller. So the rumors of Kayla Harrison being 5'8" appear to be somewhat exaggerated, because in bare feet, Larissa Pacheco was 1.5 inches taller and was not especially less bulky. I mean, Kayla still got the most ridiculous guns on the planet, but aside from that, they look to be about the same size. Pacheco would have to do some work to become somebody that could consistently make 145 again. Yeah, just bittersweet is the only way I can think of to put it.
Like, and is the only way forward for Larissa Pacheco, Kayla Harrison again and again and again? What does the PFL do here? And tell me about the fight too.
I mean, as far as the fight's concerned, I mean, this looked like a classic case of someone overestimating their abilities while underestimating their opponents. And I think it's understandable in a sense when you've become, this dominant force and you've already beaten this person twice. Makes sense to me. I'm so about to sneeze. Hold on.
Like, I don't want to take a victory lap or anything like that, because I'm not, trying to laugh about her misfortune or anything.
Well, I mean, think about that. She was on, I believe it was the MMA Hour before the fight, like just as fight week was beginning.
Who, Kayla?
Yeah, Kayla.
Yeah, talking about no pay-per-view buys.
Yeah, she's talking now. As far as the business stuff she's talking about, totally understand that she was not going to put a whole bunch of muscle into promoting something if her paycheck is going to stay the same. I totally understand that, and she is right in that. But her tone in talking about why it was a bad idea to put this on pay-per-view, one of the first things she said, "This is somebody I've already beaten twice." That says a lot. Now, however true that statement may be, it says a lot when you're not looking at your opponent as an opponent worthy of the possibility of beating you. We saw what happened to Luke Rockhold when he dismissed Michael Bisping because he had a prior win over him. We've seen what happens in these cases. So this seemed like that to me. It seemed a lot like that. Like when Kayla realized, okay, I can't just do what I want. Oh shit, now what do I do? That's what it looked like to me. It looked like a lot of panic, trying to change things on the fly, but you don't know exactly what to change, so you're just kind of sinking and sinking.
Shooting for a double and be I don't do this. Yeah.
Yeah, you're going beyond your comfort zone in a way that's not conducive to you winning, because you just don't know what else to do. That's what it looked like to me. Now, as far as what the PFL does, I don't really think this is that big of a deal for the PFL. This isn't something that, granted, they've tried to build Kayla Harrison as this star, but is she really outside of our circles? Is Kayla Harrison someone who's drawing in a whole lot of ratings and a whole lot of numbers?
I can hear Jed Meshew yelling at us, from 2,000 miles away. Nobody outside of this space gives a shit about.
That's sort of what I get from
Aaron Bronstetter's voice is wafting down from the Great White North to.
Oh yeah, Aaron is right now. He's like in my ear saying, "Tell him what the ratings are." I think that they have lost something as far as some of the super fights out there, especially with Cyborg kind of making the rounds outside of Bellator now. Like what can happen and co-promotion possibilities. But I mean, I think if Kayla Harrison were to rematch Pacheco and if she were able to get a win, especially if she can get a finish, I think we're right back to where we left off. A lot of great fighters have that hiccup in the road. And not to say that Kayla is in the same category as a GSP or something like that, but the greatest fighters have those hiccups, and this could very well just be a hiccup if she goes back and triples down on her victories on Pacheco.
The reason why I feel this is more of a sky is falling moment than you guys do is because this, I say this with respect to her competitors, because Kayla Harrison's 15-0, which means she has 15 fights ahead of time. Obviously, 2 are against Pacheco, other fights along the way. This fight was the first fight where a lot of people said, watch out for Pacheco. This is a real test for Kayla Harrison. When I don't think you could look back and say, boy, that Caitlin Young, she's going to really put the screws to Kayla, or Cindy Dandois, yeah, she's got it. She's the one who could do it. Or okay, maybe Courtney King when Kayla goes to Invicta and tests the waters at 145, maybe Courtney King can do something. No, we never had any of that for any of her fights. Kayla was a 30-1 favorite regularly, repeatedly. Like there was the stat didn't pan out, and it's really too bad. But for a while, Kayla was trending that this was going to be the closest fight on the odds, that she was going to be like a 600 favorite instead of a 30 favorite. Now it bumped up to in minus 800, so it wasn't the biggest. But we're talking about a fighter in Pacheco who I wasn't the only person who said, watch out. I mean, even Duffy on the preview show with Dev Goes Fishing was talking about how, I can see this is a very winnable fight for Pacheco if this or that. Now I'm picking Harrison, but I would not be at all surprised.
Dude, the reason I picked Harrison was I said I don't trust this new Titanic Pacheco to be the fresher fighter if this thing goes past the middle of the second round.
Yeah.
And that's where I was most wrong about this fight. Because if Pacheco had plunked Harrison in the first 8 or 9 minutes of the fight, you kind of you seem to it's like that's surprising but not shocking. Pacheco could do that. But if you told me that Pacheco just rightfully won a decision, and she won it by being the less tired fighter and by denying Harrison's takedowns for the last half of the fight, I would have had a harder time stomaching that. And that's what makes this feel less like a fluke. Upset, yes. But it's more, it's not Sarah GSP. It's Home Rousey, where it's like, oh, if they fight again, it might look like that almost every time.
That's kind of how I look at it. Pacheco won the 5th round. I don't think anybody, I myself included, would have predicted Pacheco could win the final round of the fight. Just, it didn't seem, on all of the metrics and all the things we knew, on all the things we've seen and past performances, just there was no way we thought that would be possible. And for that to happen was truly impressive. So for Harrison to lose on her first real test is massive, because she was the undefeated 2-time gold medalist, all of the things, but she has 177,000 Instagram followers, random fighter Diana Babitsa, Romanian, I think she's Romanian, UFC roster 315,000. So like
it's that's not random.
Oh, really?
Diana Babitsa is hot.
Oh, okay. I don't know. Tisha Torres. Fine. We'll go Tisha Torres. How many Instagram followers does she have? We're playing the Instagram game. She has 266,000.
Yeah, I was about to say, I'm sure she's less than Kayla Harrison.
More. Almost 100,000.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm Tisha Torres. I like Tisha Torres. I've been watching her since her pro debut. But that's okay, fine. That's totally exactly. And so the bubble of this, and Kayla also has the 2-time gold medal thing that she also can boost into it. So PFL ain't that. So this is the worst case scenario because this was the star. This was the woman that allegedly you're paying her $1 million to fight. Not even talking about the check. You're throwing $1 million at her for the salary. So it's just a catastrophic situation because you lose all of the fun you had and you have egg on your face because of the whole Cyborg won't have a chance on me, the whole I'm the greatest woman to ever do it, all of the things that Kayla said, all the things that Peter Murphy, the PFL head, and Don Davis were saying, and everything like that, all of the promotional blunder and hyperbole makes you look silly because there's nothing, you can't come back from this when it is a full sale performance, a pillar to post impressive. She won a couple rounds, but Pacheco won this fight convincingly. And I think that there is egg on faces. So I think it's really too bad for PFL, but it's the nature of the fight game.
Yeah. It's something. I mean, I do think though this could be a good thing for Kayla in the long run because if they're not doing a lightweight tournament next year,
nope.
And they're going with featherweight, it
almost sounds like going flyweight because Dakota Desheva, they're really wanting to get her going. And
okay, so if they do, if the PFL does a featherweight tournament instead of instead of any other division that to be added. This might be good for Kayla Harrison because she will get regular reps at a weight class where you actually can get fights.
Sort of regular. She flat out said, I can make featherweight once a year.
Yes. And is Kayla Harrison
but what you do for
Aspen?
That $1 million check though will make you switch up your nutrition in ways that you wouldn't otherwise.
We're talking about a woman who won her Olympic medals at 176 pounds.
Massive.
And that was when she was in her early 20s.
Yeah,
like she's not as tall as advertised, but she's big, man. Like
Sarah McMahon for me, very similar physique to Sarah McMahon.
Yeah, mm-hmm.
I've never met Kayla Harrison in person, so I can't speak to her physique like standing in front of her. I've met Sarah Kaufman before and see like the build or whatever, but the way Kayla looks, at least on TV, that is a lot of extra muscle. Like that takes a lot of caloric maintenance. I think a nutritionist worth their salt, unless she has some sort of metabolic issues that we're not aware of, or a thyroid issue or something like that. I don't think it'll be nearly as taxing to get down to 145 on a semi-regular basis.
It's just the question of, is she going to cut there or is she going to work down?
She'd have to diet down. Like you can't just drain yourself. You'd have to diet down. And I think when you have that much muscle requires so much calories to maintain. You cut back those calories, less muscle to maintain. So we'll see. I mean, that especially with her going out with the lightweight division in PFL on a loss, and that potentially hurting the prospects of her going to Bellator to fight Cyborg, or the UFC being interested in her, or whatever the case may be. This might just force you to say, hey, I'm going to stick around for featherweight.
Like and I don't think this is pay-per-view worthy. I didn't think this card was pay-per-view worthy. I enjoyed the card, but I don't think it was pay-per-view worthy. The PFL might try and push the rematch, the fourth fight of Pacheco versus Harrison, as a pay-per-view. That doesn't sound. That might do worse than this fight card did.
They'd have to stack it with something else. It couldn't just live on its own.
They stacked it with like all of their champions. So like the best fighters they had, and Jeremy Stevens and Marlon Moraes and well,
Well, they didn't.
Ladd.
But they didn't stack it necessarily with their most popular names, and that's the thing. The way the tournament played out, a lot of the more popular people didn't make it.
Yeah, no, Ray Cooper and
and Anthony Pettis and whatnot. Like so maybe it, but still, it's probably not going to be a major success regardless. So, all right, well, let's keep things pushing here because we do have another champion to discuss. A new PFL champion. The featherweight division sees a new king and $1 million check for Brendan Loughnane, who is most known to a lot of you as the cast-off from the Contender Series. In hindsight, was PFL the right place to go?
Yes, I asked my co-host Dev this on the preview we did. How many UFC featherweights made $1 million in 2022? Maybe one. Maybe Alexander Volkanovski made $1 million in 2022. Max Holloway didn't. He fought
lost
once this year.
He lost. Yeah.
Yeah, he fought once and he lost. Like, Brendan Loughnane might have been the highest paid featherweight in mixed martial arts in 2022. He absolutely made the right call joining PFL. But more germane to the discussion, the UFC made a bad call not signing this guy. He got a Dana White tantrum for shooting for a takedown on Bill Algeo, who, by the way, is still in the UFC and above 500. In the last 30 seconds of a fight he was winning. And Dana's like, we're here to sign killers. Just kind of rips Loughnane and doesn't sign him. And yeah, congrats. Brendan Loughnane is probably a top 15 featherweight on quality. I mean, if Olivier Aubin-Mercier is Sherdog's number 15 lightweight right now, Loughnane has just as good a case, to be kind of skirting the bottom of the top 15 at featherweight. And by the way, he's finishing quite a few of his opponents.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking for killers. Here, let me sign Teresa Bleda. Granted, yes, fine. This was season 3, and season 6 has become a sign everybody thing. I don't think I would like. I don't know about Loughnane over Ili Topuria, who was Sherdog's number 15 guy, who beat Yusuf Zalal and Damon Jackson are his 2 probably highest profile wins. I mean, he scorched Ryan Hall too, and Jai Herbert was a decent win. Bryce Mitchell, of course, he's fighting it soon, but that's a tough, and that's the gate to get into the top 15. But I like what you're putting down here. Where Loughnane succeeded the best is the rate of the ratio of pay to level of competition. Like, this is a guy who let's look at what Bill Algeo has been dealing with in the UFC. I remember he made his debut against Ricardo Lamas. He's had to fight Herbert Burns. He's had to fight Andre Fili. He had to fight Ricardo Ramos. He had to fight Spike. I don't know which version of his nickname, the Resurrection, the Alpha Potato, whatever nickname he had at the time, versus Ryoji Kudo, Ago Huskic, Tyler Diamond, who was a cast-off from the UFC, Shaman Marias, who, he ran game on Marias the other day. It's easier to win and you're getting paid more. The only downside is if he had signed with the UFC 1, 2, 3, 4, and he'd gone 8-1 in the UFC, he would 100% be a ranked featherweight if he had fought that on the way. But because of the PFL, because of his best win is Bubba Jenkins or Chris Wade, there's just a hard cap on where he can go. I'm happy for him because it's kind of vindication, but I also feel for the guy because he's now stuck in no man's land of, oh boy, I get to fight Lance Palmer next year.
Well, I'll tell you what'll make him feel better from being stuck in the no man's land is that $1 million check.
That's right.
The hell with the opinions of guys like us.
That's right.
Making rankings. This is prize fighting. Get the prize.
Damn right, buddy.
And take as little damage on that path as possible. If he were, like you said, Jay, if he were in the UFC and perhaps was 8-1 in the featherweight division, and would be certainly looking at a potential title shot, or at least fighting regularly in the top 5 or whatever. I mean, you're talking about a lot of sustained damage, and guess what? You probably didn't make $1 million on the way there either.
Dude, like if he were okay, let's think. He would go on 4-0 in the first contract, so 10, 12, 14, 16. Then you win all 4. You sign to a new contract, probably about 24. You lose that to Muvlid Khaybulaev is the guy who he lost to in PFL in 2019. So you lose to a pretty good guy, and then go on to win 4 more. He probably like 26, 28, 30, 32. So yeah, we're talking like $150.
Yeah, makes sense. And then on top of that, there's the potential that he pisses off someone in the organization and doesn't get matched up the way he otherwise would have. He falls out of favor in some way, or or pandemic even affects how he can fight, because had he been signed off the Contender Series, he would have been a member of the UFC roster during the pandemic. How does that affect his training when they demanded people, when they were sending out the letter to get everyone, managers to dig up your guys in the local scenes and all that, and they were just desperate for someone to make it across the border?
And he's a Brit. He's not getting here as easily.
Exactly. So there's gonna be some serious issues with the progression of his career. And even if he doesn't become a progression of career issue because of the pandemic, then you're talking about the potential where he's faced up with too much too soon.
Yeah.
And then you get a lot of lot of tread off the tire before you even get to the spot where you could be making big money. So this is a win for him in every way, shape, and form. Gentlemen, I want to throw a question back at you. How long will Dana White's rant be when he's asked about this the next time there's a microphone and reporters in front of him? When he's asked about any regrets of signing Brendan Loughnane, how much credit will he take for inspiring him to become a killer after leaving the Contender Series without a contract?
I imagine he'll actually just shut down the question as quickly as possible, because it's one of those ones where you can't even say mistakes were made, because it's like just literally nobody's decision but his right in the moment. Like, he's usually got Sean Shelby and or Mick Maynard sitting next to him, but it is his decision.
I'm with Duffy. I think he'd be like, I think he would probably be like, who? He'd be like, because he wouldn't really have the guy on his radar. He'd be like, oh yeah, that guy from 2019, yeah, whatever, good for him. Who's he beating? Oh, Chris Wade, the guy we let go. Oh, Tyler Diamond, the guy we let go. Shane Moraes, the guy we let go. He wouldn't even go that far. My point is he'd be like, what's he been doing? Who's he been fighting? Who cares? Good for him. It will be a good for him, but not like a good for him. It will be good for him.
Yeah, pretty dismissive. Good for him.
Yeah.
That's probably the best case scenario for his response.
Yeah,
I think as far as like being courteous is concerned.
Yeah,
but I really do.
It's not like asking about like Jake Paul or something,
right?
But
yeah,
I really do think it would be a who. Which
that
because I mean, I have 650 fighters on my roster. I'm not going to remember one that I had a meltdown about 3 years ago.
Yeah, but I imagine this something like this would be on his radar. Because at this point, you win on a big stage. The UFC at least is looking at you because they're wondering when your contract is up. They're wondering, they're wondering things about you at that point. So the name is circulating through those offices in Vegas right now. I'm pretty certain of that.
The one thing, if I were to, I know we need to move along here, that I would slightly push back. I can't think of a single. No, I can. Felipe Lins. But other than Felipe Lins, I can't think of a fighter who won PFL season a championship and moved to the UFC. I can't think of one besides Felipe Lins. And there's a lot of champions that have gone through that organization that have not gone to the UFC afterwards. So it's all been UFC to there. And a lot of them have been winning it, like Sean O'Connell.
Mm-hmm.
You can think of all the names.
Shoeface.
Shoeface. Yeah. I mean, it would make sense that it isn't the other way around, because you won $1 million check and now you're getting offered 30 and 30.
Yes,
you know,
that's exactly right.
unless you're down bad, you know,
Yeah,
that doesn't make a lot of sense.
And it's not a winner take all thing. It was very illuminating when Lewis Taylor, who won the middleweight championship that first season, was like this had already been my best paid year as a fighter before I got to the finals. Like, you know, it's like I'd already made $250,000 just for winning the semifinal. So it's not like you get nothing, and then you just get $1 million lump sum if you win the whole thing. Like it's pretty intelligently structured.
Yeah. Where the heck the money's coming from, I'll never know. But it's a lot of former UFC names winning the gold, so that's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of UFC names and PFL names and how they all would do with one another, let's take a quick 6 new champions PFL. Which one of them does the best if they are in the UFC or Bellator rosters?
I mean,
I say Brennan.
Brendan would do well. I was wrong about Rob Wilkinson. He is a different and better fighter than the middleweight that washed out of the UFC 4 years ago. Like, he's just a better, more complete fighter, physically transformed. Little bit of a male version of what's happened to Larissa Pacheco. Like, he has moved up like through weight divisions in a quality manner, broadened his skill set, and just developed some better killer instinct. I think he'd do well in the UFC light heavyweight division now. Olivier Aubin-Mercier got cut from the UFC on 3 straight losses, but dude,
murder.
You can make an argument that he's a top 10 fighter based on the 3 people that beat him. Like Arman Sarukian was the soft touch out of those. Like it's ridiculous. You know, like his final. It was him and Stevie Ray, 2 guys that were something like 7-4 and 8-4 in the UFC. Like, but no, I'd say it's either Loughnane, or if it's Wilkinson, it's because that's also a much easier division.
That's why I was going to say Ante D'Elia. I think heavyweights have the way to get there, and he has. I mean, his only losses in the past, I don't know, like 8 years. Are to Bruno Capoloza, who of course was a champion, is a really impressive fighter, and Marcin Tybura, current ranked, and that was by injury. So it wasn't like I think it was like he had a leg kick and he took a step back, like, you know, something like that. So okay, fine, that's it. That's the only losses he's had on his ledger, and he's beaten some, you know, people. Like, I wouldn't say his best name is Renan Ferreira. I mean, like, you know, Ollie Thompson is not going to blow your hair back or anything like that. But I think he would probably suit into the forgotten top 10, like a Shamil Abdurakhimov. He's in the top 10 kind of situation. I think that would be Ante D'Elia. And he's 32. Like, he's got another 15 years in the division.
And he's got the super switcheroo mind games, because he shows up with literally Mirko Krokop and Peter Arts in his corner, and then all he wants to do is clinch you against the fence and try to judo throw you. It's beautiful. Like, you go in there going, just don't kick me in the head.
Yes,
and then,
exactly.
And then you're looking up at the lights like, what happened? Yeah. All right, fellas. Well, let's keep things pushing here. We got quick hits. That means we're putting 10 seconds on the clock. Is that it? Or did I screwed this clock up again? Whatever. Yeah, whatever. We'll see. I don't even know. Let's see. Hold on. I'm going to press play just to see what time pops up. Oh, it is 10 seconds. So I was right. Okay. All right. So we're going to put 10 seconds on the clock. And Jay, I'm going to ask you a question to start things out. Did Aspen Ladd impress, or is any of her shine after her signing gone?
I thought she lost the fight, but she should have run over a 39-year-old Julia Budd. So this does not bode well for her, I think.
All right. Okay, Ben, I'm going to ask you something as well. Olivier Aubin-Mercier is the only recent UFC release to join the PFL and win this year. Is he the best active Canadian fighter right now?
That's a good question. I think he might be, unless I'm missing a real obvious name, I think it's probably him.
All right.
The only
That's
one I
because
could
Brock Lesnar isn't fighting.
the only one I can think of is Jillian Robertson, who flirts with the top 15, but then she loses 2 in a row and falls into an armbar, and like, but that's a really tough one.
Yeah,
like Marc-Andre Barrio, no, like
I guess it'll be him.
Charles Jourdain, maybe.
Jourdain was right around there, or Air Jourdain was one of the guys, but yeah, I mean, it might be.
Well,
And
Jake,
let me ask you a question.
Yes, please.
You've been watching this guy for a long time, nicknamed the Swedish Denzel. Sadibou Sy, you've been a fan and enjoyed his time in the PFL. This is his 4th tournament. He's the only fighter to fight in all 4 tournament playoffs. He won it. How's it make you feel?
Absolutely fantastic. This man was deserving. This man is incredible. I love watching him fight. I will say that this fight definitely exposed a lot of holes in this game, and probably won't see this level of success again.
Only got to do it once, though, baby.
That is true. You got $1 million. Can't take it away from him now.
Nope.
All right, and let me put a minute on the clock. A minute that we will certainly disrespect, as we tend to do for these last questions. Who should be the highest ranked worldwide fighter between all 6 champions?
Sure. Larissa Pacheco. She's the #1 women's lightweight in the world.
That's worse than Amanda Nunes, though, in her top thing.
Yeah, it's like when you don't have a division and you win a fight, you're automatically in the top 5. So
yep.
Oh man, is she a top 15 pound for pounder though? I know I'm totally screwing things up.
Was Kayla in the Sherdog pound for pound?
Yeah,
ranking?
Kayla actually made it as high as 14th. Like I was one of the people fighting against it.
Me too.
I'm like, there's a reason Sherdog doesn't rank lightweights. Like you can't. She's not a pound for pound fighter if she's just beating up overmatched smaller women all the time. I always lost that argument, but you know, if she deserved to be there, then Pacheco deserved to be there for beating her.
Yep. I would have been on your side with that if I were still a Sherdog staff member. So.
Yeah.
I'm thinking it actually has to be Rob Wilkinson, and I don't say that because I agree, but I just think because Antonio Carlos Jr. was on there for winning the 2021 season and then didn't make it into 2022 season, like that sort of kind of turnover maybe put him on the 15-16, but I don't really feel strongly enough about it to actually think that's the case.
Yeah, I would go Rob Wilkinson also, and a lot of it has to, aside from Pacheco, of course, Rob Wilkinson would have to be on part on that list because the light heavyweight division is so thin across all promotions that you do something like this in PFL, then it means something as far as the landscape of the entire division. So,
but OAM is actually of all the we way past the time, and that's okay. OAM is a top 15 lightweight in Sherdog right now, and he cemented his spot as such with his win over Usman Nurmagomedov. So that's food for thought.
Interesting. All right. Well, gentlemen, let's keep things pushing here. The biggest news outside of the happenings in the PFL, the biggest fight news in general probably has to be the shakeup to UFC 282. Jiri Prochazka injured, shoulder injury, from what I understand, a catastrophic shoulder injury. I don't know how much of this was publicly reported, but I did find a little bit of inside information. Oh, come on now. Just keeps pulling the thing out of the microphone. Please don't do that. Please don't.
Where's Iron Man to save her?
Yeah, Iron Man, and she just broke up and just sat down here, breaking up all my stuff. All right. So anyway, Jiri Prochazka, no longer the light heavyweight champion. A shoulder injury has decided he's going to vacate the title. Now Glover Teixeira also left out in the cold. We've got Ankalaev versus
Jan Blachowicz.
Jan Blachowicz. That's right. That's kind of came out of left field, but that's what we're getting for the main event of UFC 282. But in the meantime, let's talk about Jiri vacating that title after his injury. They're talking about maybe a year-long recovery before he's back in action. Should this be the path that more injured champs follow?
Well, I will say real quick that Jan Blachowicz versus Magomed Ankalaev was the co-main event of UFC 282 already. So they just put it for the vacant title. Like, this is an interim. This is a vacant title situation. I love it. I love that Jiri said, what's the point in holding this title if I'm not going to be able to do anything with it for at least a year? Now, he said 6 months, but everything else I've heard, I mean, Dana White said this is the worst injury of all time in the history of injuries, that kind of rhetoric, but he did really stress the magnitude of the shoulder injury, which was echoed by other people. What is it? Sources close to the situation, I suppose we can say, that this is a gnarly shoulder injury, whatever exactly the specifics are. This is a year-long recovery. And that's not common for a shoulder injury unless there's a complete, a tear, like even like a rotator cuff kind of situation. You can probably come back in 6 to 9 months, depending on recovery. So a year shelf, this is a gnarly bad situation. So I love it. I love when Kyoji Horiguchi, the concurrent Ryzen and Bellator bantamweight champion, blew out his ACL. He said, I can't defend them. I'm not going to be around for a while. Take him back. When I'm back, I'll be ready to fight for it. But until then, keep it moving. I love it. I don't care about interim titles. Like, yes, the one argument I am okay with interim titles is that the challengers and the interim champion will make more money because it's a title fight. But I don't care for the actual thing itself. So I love the situation, except for Glover Teixeira, because he would not say, yeah, I'm gonna go from a wacky, wavy, inflatable, arm flailing tube-man striker in Jiri Prochazka to a ridiculous Dagestani four-guard wrestler in Magomed Ankalaev. So I get why he didn't say, I'm going to take that in 3 weeks and then that'll be my final fight. But the UFC burned him because they said, fine, we're moving on. Good luck with that. And I think Glover, I think there's a greater chance that we're going to see Khabib fight again than Glover Teixeira in the UFC.
I can definitely agree with Glover coming back being a big question mark now. Like, it makes no sense to expect him on what was probably going to be his final fight, to now all of a sudden this huge stylistic shift, this younger, hungrier guy and everything. It just didn't make any sense. And even a guy who doesn't ring the radar like the actual champ in Jiri would, and doesn't mean as much personally, considering how he probably wants to avenge that loss. So it doesn't make sense for that to be what could be their final fight. But as far as what Jiri did, I love it. I agree with you, Jay. This is, it's not selfish. Fighting is a very selfish pursuit. It's a solitude. It's a path of solitude for a lot of people, and that makes sense. And you look out for your best interests. But man, this is refreshingly selfless. To just say, hey, I'm just going to give this up because I'm not going to be able to defend it, because the UFC otherwise would have just slapped an interim title on. And quite honestly, I'm surprised they didn't just do that anyway, just to have another belt floating out there, just to give. I think he preempted it. I think that's why. I think
by him announcing that he's giving it up, I think he stopped the possibility of an interim title by his statement.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, for what I understand, like too, that the injury was absolutely horrible. At least when it happened, that it was like some rolling or sparring session, and he went down screaming. That it was like instant went down screaming and like knew something was wrong right away. So, but this is what needs to happen. We don't need to have TJ Dillashaw's in there coming in there with their arm hanging off and holding up the division because they think they can win with one arm. Like, we don't need stuff like that. Stuff like that degrades the quality of the fight. We would have roasted Jiri over the coals if he came in there for that fight with something similar and the wind changed direction and all of a sudden his shoulder just falls apart again. If he comes in there and he's held up with duct tape and then he gets battered, well, it's kind of, it puts a big damper on what we could actually learn from that. It kills the quality of the product. this doesn't kill the quality of the product. This improves the quality of the product by making sure the best quality product is in the cage at the time. So I am thrilled that there's someone thinking like this in the UFC, and hopefully we'll see him back on a quicker timetable than what was projected.
How about you, Ben?
It's easy to kind of smirk at Prochazka's persona, the samurai top knot, the meditating in the forest. You know, there's a certain martial arts goofiness meets Diego Sanchez in the persona he projects, but he validated and vindicated all of it by simply saying the belt and the, you know, all the glitz and bullshit means nothing to me if I can't actually compete. Like, he, at risk of sounding cliched, he did the honorable thing, and very, very few people in this sport do. Like, big ups to Jiri Prochazka.
Definitely. So I guess we'll get to 282 predictions when the time comes. That time is fast approaching. What we have, like, what, a week in between? I think we have one more show, and then
a preview for it on Wednesday.
Oh wow, man! Time is this year's moving too quick, man. We'll blink and it'll be 2023.
A Paddy Pimblett pay-per-view co-main event.
Yay!
Las Vegas.
Pimblett and Bryce Mitchell on the same pay-per-view main card. Those are going to be some wild press conferences.
Yeah. That's
post-fight interviews too.
Yeah. Ooh.
Win or lose, you know Paddy's going to grab the mic, even if he gets smoked.
It's kind of one of those things where, like, I wish I was still, you know, credentialed media, so I can just see this up close. Like, this actually happened. Like, I saw it with my own eyes. I heard it with my own ears. Like, this wasn't filtered through anything. This is no CGI. Like, these guys really said this, and they're really that nuts. So, anyway, well, let's move on to the greatest title segment in all of media history. I'm Not Surprised, Mr. Falcons, where we share something that surprised us or ironically did not since we last met. Ben, I will begin with you. What is your I'm Not Surprised, Mr. Falcons moment this week?
Well, I definitely not surprised, but there was a photo op this past week where several Dominance MMA fighters, Kamaru Usman, Justin Gaethje, went to Chechnya and hung out with Ramzan Kadyrov for a weekend, shot some guns, and hung out. On some level, that's, like I said, not surprising. Fighters been doing that for a long minute now. It's got to be 7 or 8 years since, like, Frank Mir and Fabricio Verdum went over there, got given, like, ceremonial knives as gifts. Ramzan Kadyrov, I forget his actual title, the president of Chechnya, his cult of personality is very much bound up with martial strength. He loves hanging around fighters and just kind of trying to absorb toughness by osmosis. It was objectionable 7 or 8 years ago. He was a significant and well-documented human rights abuser of his own people then. Now, I mean, he flips back and forth in terms of his personal loyalty to Vladimir Putin or not, but Chechnya, for a country that's, it's right next door to Dagestan and it's not much bigger, is a hugely disproportionate provider of troops to the Russian forces currently invading Ukraine. Like, he's not a good dude, and yeah, it's disturbing and upsetting that fighters continue to turn a blind eye to this, like, and just, make the trip. I don't get it. I wish it were not the case.
It's like we keep having this conversation over and over again. And I want to bring up one thing that I thought was a good point that a lot of people brought up on social media about this, because we know, like, Kadyrov, like, pays these guys for these. They make a decent amount of money making these appearances. I think that's, hanging out with a murderous dictator, a homicidal bigot is never a good thing and never something to be condoned. But I think it's more forgivable if you got a 10-10 contract and you genuinely need the money. I recall a conversation I had with a fighter who had just been, I'm not sure if he was just released or his contract was up or what his status was, but he was essentially a free agent at the time and really did need to get some paydays in. And he said, like, hey, I'll fight for ACB at the time. He's like, I'll fight for them. I'll fight for Kadyrov and whoever else. I don't care. I need the money. But we're talking about Kamaru Usman, who just let go of the title, just a matter of weeks ago, held on to it for a while, made a decent amount of money, at least in comparison to a lot of his colleagues. Justin Gaethje, also belt holder, one of the higher paid fighters that isn't a current champion.
Bonuses alone.
Yeah. So these are guys who don't need the money, that don't absolutely need that money to put food on the table. This was just unnecessary controversy to throw yourselves into, like just really stupid, just flat out stupid to get yourself involved with something like this. So, Jake, what's your I'm not surprised Mr. Falcons moment this week?
Well, I guess we have the worst and most depressing transition of all time, because Ramzan Kadyrov is known for his purges of gay people, and among other people that journalists and certain other nationalities, ethnicities, races that he has killed to make him, if not registering in genocide levels, war criminal, mass killer, all of the bad things. Like, this is a guy who's on all the lists of the government that says, hey, wow, you probably shouldn't. So I don't even know actually how the check clears. And I wish that the U.S. government would check into Dominance MMA to find out how this money is being funneled to an American-based management company when they're sending Americans over to Chechnya for a war criminal and someone who is currently actively sending soldiers to Ukraine to do it. But let's go happy news, because that's really depressing sentence, because we're going to go happy. Tecia Torres, who has 266,000 followers on Instagram that we just found out a few minutes ago, more than Kayla Harrison, is having a baby with her wife, Raquel Pennington. I'm actually, to this moment, not entirely sure if she's officially Tecia Torres or Tecia Pennington on any of the official communiques, because like how Paige Van Zandt is Paige Van Zandt, but she's not actually, because of the marriage. So she's both. I think the UFC officially still has her listed as Tecia Torres, which means that she'll be her fighting name. Whereas like Michelle Waterson Gomez, that type of situation.
Well, and because, she on all the social media posts that you're probably going to mention, referred to it as the Pennington household.
Yes, exactly. So it's a Tecia Pennington, but not quite, because Tecia Torres is a brand name. And I say that with all respect and love, because, I've literally been watching Tecia Torres since the beginning when she fought in Invicta. So Torres is going to have the baby. She's going to be on the shelf. How is baby formed? I don't know. She'll be on the shelf for the year. She'll be coming back the following year. And the reason I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcons, isn't because of that. I'm super happy with her for the family. That's great. I love it. I like when the fight families have something to be happy for, because, there's so much negativity in this GD sport. Well, it's people, humans, the other people, the ones that look at this news and react to it and are confused about the story, or don't understand how it's happening, or are at worst critical about it. Like, where do you think you are right now to rip on a newly expecting mother because you disagree with whatever their orientation may be? They're having a family. Like, there were plenty. This is not an indictment of every fan, but there was a non-zero faction of weird, uncomfortable comments and gross statements. It's just like, why? Why would you stop your day? You'd read this story, say it's on the Sherdog Facebook page that it popped up, and you saw this, and it was a picture, and you got the thing, and everybody's smiling, and it's a whole good situation, and you would go over there and dump on it. Should have adopted many kids in need. No need to pretend till women can make a baby, says Alex Gonzalez, idiot commenter. Like, what the hell? Like, why? Why do you need to take time out of your life to say that, to speak into the void? They're not going to hear you. If they heard you, it wouldn't be like, oh boy, I'm sure glad Alex Gonzalez said that. That's his actual
I had never
name
thought
on
of.
the comment.
I had never considered that.
Like what on earth are these people? Are they really people anymore? The commenters I'm referring to, obviously, like to actually put this in the world and think, boy, I needed to say this today. I needed to put that in the world as myself. I don't get it. And I'm so happy for the two. And I don't get the stupid.
If you are the kind of person that goes out of your way to increase your interaction with something you find objectionable, like, do you cross the street to step in dog shit?
Like let me try and seek out something I dislike to whine about it on a public forum.
It's like, I hate banana bread as I'm shoveling it down my throat. It just doesn't make any sense. Like, I didn't even, when I saw that pop up on my timeline, I didn't even look at the comments. I just said to myself, congrats to them.
Never look at the comments.
And it's like, I just don't need that on my soul right now. Like, it was an invitation for stupidity. And then I could see, as I was scrolling down the timeline more, I was seeing like people that we follow and like their replies to stuff. I'm like, I'm not jumping in that. I just can't do it. Too much stupid for me in one day. All right, fellas. Well, I'm not surprised Mr. Falcons comes courtesy of the turmoil in McGregor land right now. Two things about our former two division champion. Conor McGregor has now the subject of a lawsuit filed by former training partner, I guess former now and former friend, Artem Lobov. Artem Lobov, who, these two have literally caught street violence together. At UFC 223, like they were part of like real street beef, but now things aren't the same. Artem Lobov suing because he feels that he is entitled to a portion of the profits of Proper 12 whiskey. At some point, McGregor offered him $1 million for some contribution to the company, and Artem turned it down, believing that he is owed more. So we'll see how this lawsuit plays out. Very interesting happenings there, and the destruction of one of the more storied friendships in mixed martial arts right before our eyes. And don't let that take attention away from something I'm sure we'll report on as more details are available to us. The oddity of Conor's relationship with USADA. He has famously not been tested all of 2022. And put out a tweet saying that he was putting himself back in the testing pool and he's fighting again in February, and USADA saying, no, you're not, because you got to be in the pool for 6 months. It is a complete mess that raises a lot of questions on the validity of USADA testing, on the validity of the mental state of Conor McGregor, and the validity of what we call mixed martial arts in general, because, hey, it's all a game. It is all a spectacle.
And shout out to Aaron Bronstetter. Sorry, Duffy. Shout out to Aaron Bronstetter for actually doing the darn thing and talking to USADA about the situation and getting a statement from USADA and then comparing it to the USADA actual standard stated policy and noting where it differed. That USADA in the statement to Bronstetter said, in the addition of, a fighter's, the reasons why a fighter would be out of the testing pool were like very few. And then USADA in the statement to him said that a fighter excludes himself from the pool or withdraws himself from the pool or some language that isn't actually in the statutory or regulatory language of USADA that appears to be a Conor McGregor carve out, because Conor McGregor is still a ranked UFC fighter. Right this second. Was
he ranked like 11 or something like that?
Let me go right this second. This is Monday at 5:30 Eastern time. Conor McGregor's the number 14 lightweight in the world right now. Hasn't fought in quite a long time, hasn't won in quite a long time, and is out of USADA testing, and is a ranked UFC fighter. And This is all kinds of gross. Like, Duffy, what the hell? What do you think? Give me feelings.
I mean, all I got is jokes, man. Like,
I need to laugh.
Of course he canned Artem Lobov. His only training partners these days are like dumbbells and cocaine. Like, I've seen the pictures of the dude. All I see is a 5'8" light heavyweight with a big left hand. Like, I love Melvin Manouf as much as the next guy, but this is 2022. Who gives a shit if Conor comes back? I'm blissfully free of giving a shit about what Conor McGregor says until I hear a fight contract has been signed. Like, that's what it is to me. He's comic relief until he takes a fight. It's kind of like, I mean, it's the same thing as John Jones. Like, him constantly teasing his return at heavyweight, and it's all comic relief until I hear about agreement has been signed.
Yeah, I mean, this is the rare exception where like McGregor news actually comes out with less focus on on himself, like, because this USADA thing, this is a big deal. If what McGregor is saying is true, if there isn't anything lost in translation between the barrels and barrels of proper 12 that are owed to Artem Lobov, or the mountains of Scarface like cocaine that he's probably snorting, it just, the USADA thing means something beyond that. So I'm very curious to see what happens. We'll figure it out as we go and keep you updated. But I'll tell you what, if a fight announcement for McGregor is announced in February, like he's saying he wants, we've got some serious things to talk about. Last time a USADA exemption was given was Brock Lesnar. At least that we're aware of, a USADA exemption for 6 months in the testing pool was Brock Lesnar. And we saw how that went for UFC 200. And that led to prolonged lawsuits filed by his opponent, Mark Hunt. It led to a lot of controversy. And I don't know if the UFC wants to repeat something like that. But with a character like McGregor, the amount of money that he attracts, much like a Brock Lesnar, maybe you go ahead as a business, take that risk. So we shall see, but it will be very, very interesting as things play out.
He is the oldest famous 34-year-old I think I know. Like, just look at his face. He has aged so much since the Cowboy fight. That was almost 3 years ago. Like, this is a 31 to 34. That's 31 to 48.
Yeah, it's like a hard, like it looks like he's lived a hard life within the span of the last few years. Like, it's a noticeable
and he's been
shift.
Swimming in bathtubs of cash and yachts and all this kind of stuff. So I don't know. I mean, it takes a lot of energy to be a rock star, I guess.
Any more problems?
Take us out.
Yep. All right, fellas. So let's keep things pushing. Oh, baby girl, I don't know what you want. You can't have the mouse. Okay. She's trying to get the mouse that actually works. I'll just give her this empty cherry Coke can and see what she does there. All right. Keep cherry Coke cans on your desk. I actually keep like random things on my desk for this purpose, to distract her when I'm
to kind of like dilute the population of things that you actually need. So you just hope that she like grabs something.
Just grab something that's totally unnecessary on this desk so I can do this show.
Yeah.
Putting out decoys for your own children. That's amazing.
I really have to plant things on my desk just for that purpose. And here's the Happy Meal toy that I jacked from my kids. I jacked it. It's a Batman. I'm keeping it. I jacked the Joker also. So that's Batman. That's Batman. See? Yeah, Batman.
Oh. Can you say Killing Joke? Can you say Hush?
Killing Joke was the comic book is great. But what a absolutely horrible animated movie.
Yeah, it was a bummer. Yeah, it was a bummer.
That was quite a disappointment. One thing that I don't expect to disappoint, though, is this main event between Stephen Wonderboy Thompson and Kevin Holland as the UFC makes its return to Orlando. I believe they're going to this weekend. They haven't been to Orlando for a long time, right? This is where they were Jacksonville post-pandemic, right?
Yeah.
And that's it. Jackson, and they've been to Miami.
Let's see. UFC on Fox, Emmett versus Steven. So early 2018.
Yeah, it's been quite some time. Wait, baby, what is it? Here.
Jessica Andrade fought Tisha Torres in the co-main event. Tisha Torres is our fighter of the day, I suppose.
Okay, sorry guys. This is getting difficult.
at the Amway Center. 10,000 people showed up.
Wow.
This is a way better. I know we're cutting them. I know. This is a way better Orlando card than that last one. And that last one was good. Stevens Emmett, Andrade Torres, Latifi OSP in theory, Max Griffin and beating up on Mike Perry.
All right.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was a good one. This one's better. I mean,
This one's tight.
I'm naturally disposed to dislike the 15 fight marathons.
Yeah.
But this one, there's only 1 or 2 fights that I'd cut. It's pretty good stuff. It's mostly there's that kind of core of fights right in the middle, like Elkins, Johnson, Guida, and much as I hate to say it, Angela Hill. Those 4 fights in a row. At least 3 of them are going to be terrible fights, and yeah.
I think Guida Holtzman is going to be an accidental banger. I think it's going to be like we have no expectation. We're like, Holtzman, what is he going to do? He's going to get up there and beat Jim Miller, and we don't care about it, or he's going to get knocked out. But Guida doesn't knock people out, so I don't know. I'm like one of 3 people left on the Clay Guida has exciting fights fighter list, I think. Because people hate him for 1 fight. They will never forgive a fight a decade ago.
Yeah.
A decade. It has been over a decade. June 2012.
No, you
the
get
Gray Maynard fight.
Like that, it's crazy that people still hanging on to that. Like that erased like his entire 10-year run of just
and he had
ridiculous fights.
And he's an actual UFC Hall of Famer because one of his fights was so awesome. One with Diego, right?
Yeah.
Or was it? Yeah, the one with Diego, which was an all-time awesome fight. Like when he gets kicked in the head and you're like, oh, he's dead, and he rises from the grave like Tyson Fury did when he fought Joshua.
And like
Wilder.
the Bendo fight.
Yeah, the Bendo fight.
He's been in great fights.
The fight that nobody got to see because the UFC had the Fox 1 thing, and then they had the prelims that was all messed up.
What a disaster.
And I got to see it later and be like, that is an awesome fight. I can't believe we didn't get to see that fight. I mean, the Pettis fight, he choked out Gomi in a good one. He broke Dos Santos with a right hand. Like, dude.
Yeah, where's the love, man? It's what a fickle sport.
And he still has good fights. His fight with Leo Santos was good. I think he might have beaten Marco Madsen. I don't remember if he did, but I think he almost did.
I kind of remember.
And his fight with Michael Johnson was, it was exactly what you hoped it would be. But no, he's dead to us. Let's see, Guida. All 3 of us, me, Tristan, and Tyler, scored it for Guida over Marco Madsen. Anyway, you want to cut back into it again?
Yeah, get back on track while she's temporarily cooperating. All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, fellas. Well, we've got UFC return to action this weekend in Orlando. First time in Orlando since 2018. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, Kevin Holland, a main event that I will be very surprised if it disappoints. And actually, as far as main events are concerned for the rest of the year, this is my sleeper for, on paper, like the most exciting one. Let's just throw out some predictions. How do we see this fight playing out, fellas?
I think this is a changing of the guard. Holland is something that Stephen Thompson didn't have to deal with for most of his career. This is a guy that is a very good striker, taller with greater reach, and a really opportunistic submission game. I think Holland's going to win this one in pretty lopsided fashion. I think as recently as 2 years ago, Thompson was still making top 10 welterweight striking specialists. Looked like they didn't belong in the cage with him. Talking about Jeff Neal, Vicente Luque. I think that guy's gone. He turned Stephen Thompson turns 40 in 3 months. It is Holland time. I picked Holland by a late submission. I think Thompson will be tired, not able to keep the distance he wants. They'll end up colliding, and Holland grabs a Bravo choke or something, standing, and just takes him down.
Jay, what say you?
Karate never dies. I think this is the best possible matchup that Wonderboy could get in basically the division. I can't think of a better fighter who is
a guy that literally said, I would rather go fight Jake Paul than fight another grappler.
Like, I seriously, I can't think a better guy other than maybe Masvidal for Wonder Boy to fight in the top 15. I don't know if Wonder Boy's not, or Holland's not in the top 15, but still, my point stands. Maybe Michelle Pajeda, but this is
dude. Michelle Pereira's been like suplexing people all over the place.
I suppose, but I think he'd want to go show off against Wonder Boy. I think this is the last gasp of an awesome Wonder Boy performance, and I say awesome because my awesome Wonder Boy performances are different from y'all's, because I appreciate the technical aspect, the foot speed, the movement, the artwork that Stephen Thompson performs at. So when he has a boring fight against Jorge Masvidal, I appreciate the hell out of it. And then when he has also terrific fights against Jeff Neal and Vicente Luque, I very much enjoy those too. I think of the people that have stifled him, have either taken him down or had like one shot flustering power, like Anthony Pettis with that Superman punch off the cage, or Darren Till, who dropped Wonder Boy early and then made the whole fight really uncomfortable and awkward to watch. And I still think that Thompson won that fight, even with the knockdown. This is going to be Wonder Boy's only. This is the I win and I retire fight for Stephen Thompson. I mean, because he's from South Carolina, so Orlando is about as close as he's going to get to a home crowd. You know, I believe there's going to be a pretty good contingent of people cruising down the coastline to Orlando, because that's about, I don't know, 5
like
hours,
a 6-hour drive or something like that.
So that's doable for local fans. He'll have the bus that he drives. They'll be coming down to see him.
Church buses.
Yeah, the church bus will make their way to see him. He's going to win by decision, and it will be a lot of fun, and it'll be a lot of Holland trying to goad him on, and Thompson won't bite on any of it. And I just think it's going to be a levels to this striking game, one last show for Thompson.
Jay, I'm in fully agreeing with you. I think Holland while Holland presents a lot of stylistic issues for him, like the length, the opportunistic submissions and a sneaky decent takedown game.
Yeah.
I think that does provide some issues, but I also think Wonder Boy, I don't think he lets him get in range to create those issues.
Why.
Yeah, and Holland is also a guy who's wildly aggressive, plays very well into the counter striking. Okay, so Elia, calm down. Look, here's Iron Man that you broke, and I'll never let go of that. All right, hopefully that a container. All right, so 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Jay, I'm in complete agreement with you. I think this is a unique opportunity for Wonder Boy, a high profile name that he has a stylistic advantage over, simply because Holland is just so aggressive. And while the sneakily effective takedown game, I think he's, like Ben, you mentioned opportunistic submission skills, that poses problems for Wonder. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I would like to be his last fight. God damn it! Like, really? It's like the moment I start to like, do you just hate this matchup or something? Yeah, Daddy's hat. Here. Oh, Mama, what are you doing? You knocking everything up. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, boom. PFL hat. Go ahead. Okay. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Jay, I'm in total agreement with you. I think this is going to be a unique opportunity for Wonder Boy to kind of show off a vintage performance with a high profile name, without interrupting like divisional pictures. I think Holland has opportunities to win this. Like, he has the ability to sneak in a submission. He has a very sneaky ability to get the fight to the floor if he so wants it to be there. But the problem is you got to get within Wonder Boy's wheelhouse.
Yeah. And
while, he physically has the reach to do it, Wonder Boy is just so good at using his limbs effectively, and especially those kicks. When he gets that lead leg side kick going, it's very, very, very difficult to get close to him. And Holland is going to need to get close somewhat, at least to be able to employ his game the way he'd like to. I think Wonder Boy is going to ignore any boos of the crowd. I think it's going to be a slow, methodical performance, but he's going to pick them apart and pick them apart over the course of 25 minutes. So we actually got that one out. Do you guys want to share any potential fights that you might want to highlight as sleepers for the whole event?
Duffy?
The obvious one to me is Nico Price versus Phil Rowe. They clearly put that together expecting something wild is going to happen. And I like the Roman Dolidze versus Jack Hermanson fight better than I like the original Derek Brunson versus Jack Hermanson fight.
I think it did too. Why do you like it more?
Well, because I'm going to learn something. Like, I always harp back to that. Brunson versus Hermanson wasn't going to teach me shit. Yep. And whoever won that is still a million miles away from a title shot. And that's a hard thing in middleweight. It's hard to win a couple fights and not be close to a title shot because there's nobody there. But Dolidze, as that rarest of animals, a 34-year-old prospect, if he gets a top 10 win against Hermanson, he's going to get fast-tracked. Yeah. Like he's fighting a top 5 opponent in his next fight if he beats Hermanson convincingly. And he might do it. Like, so I'm interested in that.
Man, there's some really cool matchups with Dolidze if he goes to like see if Marvin Vettori can outmuscle him, or there's some interesting fights there on the horizon. But I'm gonna go with Fisco Boop. That's going to be my approach, because that was kind of my analysis of Kayla versus Pacheco, is that Pacheco walk up, punch, Boop, out. Tai Tuivasa and Sergey Pavlovich is that exact awful, wonderful, terrible, horrible, no good, very bad, awesome beatdown. It's going to be like a first round. Like, I think you could probably, let's see the odds here. Pavlovich is, wow, he's almost a minus 200 favorite right now. Pavlovich is, and I think under 1.5 rounds is minus 190. So I'm going with first round knockout. I don't know who yet. That's the fun part. I think Pavlovich. I think the excuse me, the loss to Overeem was an aberration. I think that was kind of a high level jitters coming against a big opponent. Because before then his biggest, toughest opponent was like Baby Fedor, Kirill Sadelnikov. So it wasn't Mikhail Modotkin. It wasn't a murderer's row over at Fight Nights Global. So what Pavlovich has turned into and what he did to Derek Lewis a couple, 6 months ago or something like that, and what he's been doing to everybody, Marcelo Golm, Maurice Green, whatever, Shamil Durkheimov, that's more impressive. In Derek Lewis, I think he could walk down Tuivasa, and Tuivasa's going to try and bang with him. And I think it's going to be a first round KO. Like, this is a KO fight. And I don't know who's going to get it. I think that's what makes me excited about it.
Yeah, and with heavyweights, you never know. Like, that's going to be intense. I got one for you: Michael Johnson versus Mark Diakese. Two guys who over their careers have underachieved, considering what the potential that they both had. But together, this might be beautiful, sweet chin music. It just might be. Michael Johnson's incredibly fast hand speed, and deceptive power, with Diakese's diversity in striking and kickboxing experience. This just sounds wonderful. As long as they both can have those sort of like pedestrian performances where they just really just don't hit the mark. And that's a possibility here. This could be either the most exciting or the most boring fight on the card. I'm going to lean toward one of the more exciting ones, because I just don't see how these two don't make a thrilling spectacle.
And Johnson doesn't really get taken down frequently, and that's what Diakese's been trying to do lately. So I think he could run into that Michael Johnson wall to force the exchanges that we always wanted to see coming from Diakese. When he can't get the takedown, he pushes against the wall, and Johnson just goes, no. And then they throw down. Give me that. Yeah,
all day long. I'll take that all day long. Well, due to the screaming and the activity of my children, I think this is going to be the end of the show here. Okay, come here, honey. Here we go. So check out Jay and Ben's coverage on SureDog. You can find my work on MMA On Point. Not sure when my first video back will be posted, but turning my first clip, so we're rocking, and I got my next assignments for the month. So anyway, like, subscribe, share, tell a friend to tell a friend. Stay beautiful, stay positive, stay sexy. I'll see you when I see you. Peace.